as a member of these learned societies and academic bodies, both at national and international level. You name an English Teachers Association, and Professor Deepti is on their panel, as sometimes as a member, sometimes as a referee, sometimes as an editor, and as we can see outside the country also, member TESOL. So she's on the editorial board of various bodies, and it is a pleasure for all of us to welcome Professor Deepti to our workshop come awareness program. We are indeed indebted to Professor Deepti for valuable time. And my dear participants, we are in for a cerebral feast, and Professor Deepti is one who continues to guide us. And today in her lecture, I'm sure at the end of it, you will be very glad that there would be many takeaways which you will cherish for all times to come. Professor Deepti, I welcome you once again on behalf of our college and our department, and the platform is all yours and all ears.
Thank you very much for your kind words, Neena ji. It's always a pleasure to be associated with my alma mater, and as my favorite expression is, you can take the girl out of MCM, but you can't take MCM out of the girl. So in fact, I give all the credit to the foundation that MCM gave me in my education and my career, because that is where I learned the basics of integrity and sincerity. So many times, I can almost feel my teachers and principals giving me a stern look if I feel tempted to go astray. So that is how this college nurtures you. I'm very grateful that they have given me this honor and invited me to speak with all of you. And I would like to begin with asking you to think for yourself. If you have ventured into research or you are thinking of venturing into research, every supervisor asks you a basic question. What is your research question? And the next step is, has anybody ever answered this research question before? What is unique about your research? And therein, my friends, lies the answer to all the ethical issues and plagiarism. What is unique about your research? What is original about your research? Why are you wasting so many pages, such a lot of time and energy in answering this research question if so many people before you have already tackled it? If you have nothing new to contribute, might as well spend your time doing something else. So all the concerns about plagiarism are hollow before your basic understanding of your goal, that I'm going to do something that nobody has done before. I've come up with an issue that nobody has tackled before. And also, friends, when you are taking ideas from somebody, what is the harm in placing the name of that person in yours? There's no harm at all. You can use people's ideas as a foundation for your original answers. Nobody is stopping you. That is what the review of literature is for. Why do we ask you to do a survey of literature? Simply because we want you to understand what all has been done in the field and how does your contribution differ from what has been done before. So it's a very simple and basic principle of research. I wish all of us would answer this question for ourselves before we begin with research. Over my career, many times I've had students coming to me and saying, "Ma'am, I want to do a PhD." My next question is, why do you want to do a PhD? And I'm sorry to say that many times the answer is, I want to do a PhD because I want to continue to live in the university. Or my parents will marry me off if I don't do PhD. Or my father will ask me, what profession are you going to take up if I don't go in for another course? So research is not another course, friends. Let's be very clear about it. You embark upon research because you are passionate about it, because you want to find answers to questions that you feel nobody else is going to answer. Classes and seminars in the world cannot give you this fire if it is not within you. So, the best way to avoid any ethical issues is to be ethical in your practices right from the beginning. Be absolutely clear that you want to do research because you are interested in research, because you enjoy research, and you have something original to contribute to the field. My friend Nina requested me to talk about the MA dissertation as well, as I understand that many of you are grappling with the MA dissertation. Now, the reason behind adding the MA dissertation to a postgraduate course was that we want learners, before they embark upon full-time research, before you think of doing MPhil or PhD, you should get a bit of a taste of what research is, number one. Number two, most of the leading universities of the world have an MA dissertation as a part of their course. Why should Punjab University lag behind? We've always been globally competitive. So we should follow the trend that is prevalent globally. And number three, if you do a short dissertation, then it gives you an orientation into what research is. It hones your talents and it gives you that academic bent of mind for handling topics. So this was the reason why the dissertation was added on. Let me clarify, there are no marks for the dissertation. There's just a grading. The evaluation is going to be done internally. And it is the choice of the organization whether you want to run the dissertation in the third semester or the fourth semester. That's up to you. But it's very clear that you can't sit for your fourth semester exam till your dissertation has been submitted and has been evaluated. Now, for this dissertation, you just choose one of your teachers from MA as a mentor, and that person will guide you all through. Think of the dissertation as being a mini thesis. It's a mini thesis, but where we give you a little bit of a freedom to choose a topic that interests you. I'm sure in your coursework, there would be many topics that interest you, where you feel you can explore the topic further. So choose your topic with care, choose your mentor with care, and remember that this dissertation has been added on not just as a formality, but in order to give you a taste of research. And you needn't feel lost at any stage. I have put my email in the chat box, it's posted there. Any of you, if you have questions at any point of time, you can contact me at this email. All right, now we'll go back to our topic. Dr. Nina, could we have my presentation, please?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
So we're going to talk about plagiarism, and we're going to talk about ethics in research and ways of implementing ethics in your research, ways of checking plagiarism. In between, in some slides, you will see some exercises that I've added there. You can take a screenshot because I'm sure in such a large group we won't be able to do those exercises. And you can take a screenshot and try them later. So plagiarism, you will be able to hate the word when you realize that plagiarism means kidnap. As you know, that many words from English have been taken from other languages. So plagiarism is also derived from the Latin word plagiarius, which means kidnapper, one who abducts a child. And I kind of agree, because when you are stealing somebody's work, it's like abducting somebody's child. It entered the Oxford English Dictionary in 1621, and the Encyclopedia Britannica defines it as the act of taking the writings of another person and passing them off as one's own. The World Association of Nina ji, I think we lost the presentation. The World Association of Medical Editors defines plagiarism as the use of others' published and unpublished ideas or words or other intellectual property without attribution or permission, and presenting them as new and original rather than derived from an existing source. Without attribution or permission. Now, this is important. What is research methodology asking you to do? Research methodology is only asking you to attribute the idea, to say that yes, I did consult such and such source. I don't see the harm in that. Why wouldn't we like to acknowledge the help that some book or some website has given us? You have a full range. You've got primary sources, you've got secondary sources. You can decide whether you want to add a text to the primary source or secondary source. Nobody stops you from doing that, which is why you have a bibliography. So even if you are using an idea in your thesis, what is the harm in citing the source in the secondary source? As I always tell my students, teachers have not descended from Mount Olympus. We read books, we read up and prepare, then we come to class. So similarly, for research too, you need to read up and prepare. And there's no harm in acknowledging if you read something. The next slide, please. So this was the formal definition of plagiarism. The Committee on Publication Ethics said plagiarism ranges from the unreferenced use of others' published and unpublished ideas, including research grant applications, to submission under new authorship of a complex paper, sometimes in a different language. It may occur at any stage of planning, research, writing, or publication. It applies to print and electronic versions. So you see, it may at any stage. Even translation is plagiarism. If you read something in another language and you translate it, the problem, I many times get asked this question: what is the problem if I'm using somebody's book? After all, a book has been made to be read. Yes, it's been made to be read, but it's not made to be used by you in your research, because your research is you. It's an expression of what you have done. Can we move to the next slide, please? So, the verb to plagiarize means to steal and pass off ideas or words of another as one's own, or use another's production without crediting the source. So, the operative word is steal here. If you don't like to steal money and you don't like to steal jewelry, you don't like to steal property or clothes, why should we steal somebody else's ideas or words? Even accidentally using another's ideas or words without proper citation due to carelessness falls under this definition, since you're trying to pass off another's work as your own. And in the digital culture, copy paste has become a way of life. We don't realize that it has very serious consequences in academic and professional settings. And we often forget the role of coincidence. Recently, there was an interesting episode. A young lady was doing MPhil on an obscure topic which many people had not written on. She came across a book written by an Indian author, and she copied one whole chapter from that book in her dissertation. Now, look at the role that coincidence plays. This MPhil dissertation went to the author of that book, and the author wrote back to the university that an entire chapter from my book has been plagiarized here. So you can imagine what would have happened after that. The young lady was asked to rewrite the whole dissertation, and she came and said to me, "Ma'am, I couldn't imagine that my dissertation would go to the same purpose." Never imagine that the person you are plagiarizing will not read your work, especially in the digital world, especially in the era of Shodh Ganga, where every thesis is uploaded on the internet. So never think that the person you are stealing from will not come to know. And anyways, every university has a plagiarism check before you submit. And every university has a level. Now for PhD at Punjab University, we accept pieces that are below 25%. For MA dissertation, it's below 10%, right? Sorry, for MA it's 25 and for PhD it's 10. So to MA, we give a little bit of a leeway because you are at the learning stage. And you're given the chance because whatever sections the software feels are troublesome, the software will mark out for you. So if you are obviously, in order to create an introduction, to create a review of literature, you are going to read up. You are going to many sources. We understand that. Go ahead and do it. Go ahead and take help from people who have talked about what you are doing. But at least say thank you. And what is that thank you? Acknowledging that yes, this is where and you don't always have to use quote marks. If you're not using a quotation, you're just picking up an idea. You can simply add that person's name to the secondary sources. Next slide, please. So when we say that plagiarism is related to ethics, we've got to understand the implications. Because if I recall now that young lady, the story I was telling you about, the MPhil dissertation, because of this problem, she had to rewrite the entire thesis. And then that lady got her MPhil degree 2 years after the rest of her batchmates. So obviously, it is some kind of a loss if you are caught out. And the argument that very few people get caught out doesn't gel here, because if you are caught, you lose so much in terms of of your repetition. You lose so much the time of because of it is clear that you complete that you feel you will bit from that. And if you are a writer by trade and you expect some kind of financial compensation, this becomes unethical. So plagiarism compromises your integrity. It leads to the loss of respect from your mentors and your peers, and it can cost you valuable professional referrals and future career advancement. Now, obviously, if I'm in a selection committee and the same young lady comes there, she would not be top of my list. So, plagiarism can result in lost financial aid. For example, if you are a UGC fellow, you may lose your fellowship, or it may lead to a loss of leadership roles. Suppose you are leading a research team and you yourself are accused of plagiarism, or loss of work already submitted, because all your work, the entire corpus will come under the scanner. The next slide, please. Now let's look at the types of plagiarism. When you submit someone else's words, without technology, or you copy and paste from a published article without acknowledging the author, this is verbatim plagiarism. And I can tell you from experience that verbatim plagiarism mostly occurs in the introduction and discussion part of manuscripts. So look at your introduction and discussion very carefully. See if you have left anything unacknowledged. Acknowledge it. Mosaic plagiarism means where you don't copy each word, but you are mixing words. So this is copying and pasting in a patchwork kind of manner. But this copying and pasting will be caught out by the software. So the software has made things tougher. In fact, even when the software was not there, what did teachers do? I'll tell you what I did. When you are guiding a researcher across years, you develop an intuition for the kind of language that the researcher uses. So the moment you find a passage that you feel doesn't belong to the researcher, your antenna sends you signals. So what I used to do was I would copy and paste the bit of language that I felt was not working in the search box of my internet browser. And I would look for similar structures. And 95% of the time, I managed to trace the sources that people were copying from. So you don't always need very sophisticated software, number one, if you are guiding research. If you are a researcher, remember that your teacher is an expert and your teacher developed a sixth sense for understanding what will be of the research. So be very careful in that regard. And remember, paraphrasing also is a restatement in your own words of someone else's ideas. Just changing words cannot make the ideas the property of the borrower. So even if you are paraphrasing, reference the source carefully. Because if it is not referenced, it will amount to plagiarism. Referencing simply means add the name of the author to your list of secondary authors. Next slide, please. We have the next slide, please. Uh, the next type of plagiarism is cyberplagiarism, where you are copying or downloading stuff from the internet and not giving proper attribution. Image plagiarism is where you are using an image or video without receiving proper permission. Even graphics and graphs would come under image plagiarism. And the trouble is that images can be tampered to support or to remove the defects of an image or misrepresent an image what it really is. All these amount to image plagiarism. Do you have any questions at this stage? You can type them in the chat box and I'll be glad to answer them for you. Next slide, please. You're welcome to type your questions in the chat box. We have the next slide, yeah. And friends, there can also be self-plagiarism. I'm sure you've come across this. Now, for example, in Urkund, when you put in a manuscript for plagiarism check, Urkund normally adds that to its library. So when you go in with your next manuscript and you've used something from your earlier manuscript, Urkund will say this is 100% plagiarism. So in order to be safe there, I would suggest that once you've done a plagiarism check, delete your manuscript from the Urkund library. Because this is a problem that many people run into. They feel that they are not able to use their own work. But there is also self-plagiarism, which is used to increase the number of publications you have to your name. The first style of self-plagiarism is duplicate publication. When, for instance, you submit your research paper to two journals, and one journal accepts your paper, but you don't inform the second journal that your paper has been accepted by. So, not knowing the situation, the second journal also publishes. Now, this is a sure way of getting into trouble. The moment you come to know that your paper has been accepted, kindly inform the second journal so that you don't become an offender. This is the first self-plagiarism, duplicate publication. The second is augmented publication. If an author adds additional data to previously published work, changes titles, or tweaks it here and there, this is augmented publication. This is not the same as verbatim. And in fact, it's not considered very strictly. But I would suggest, in order to avoid this self-plagiarism, if you are tweaking an earlier article, then make sure that you refer to that article and also state that you are using data from your previous publication. You see, the whole key to ethics and plagiarism is acknowledging. You are welcome to use all the ideas in the world, provided you acknowledge that you have taken them from somebody, that you have used somebody else's ideas. Next slide, please. Now, this is an interesting one, segmented publication. This is called a salami sliced publication. This is when maybe you've done a very long research experiment and you publish one aspect of that experiment in one paper, in one journal, another aspect of that experiment in another journal, and the third aspect in a third website. Now, the trouble here is that If you don't acknowledge the fact that all these papers come from the same research study, you can be accused of plagiarism. So I would say that if you are using the same research study to publish papers over and over again, then keep referring to the earlier papers. That ideas in this research study may overlap because the author has published such and such earlier papers. Also, if you use a large portion of your own already published texts in a new manuscript, it's called text recycling. And this can be detected by plagiarism software. So be aware that you yourself can also steal your work. It's not necessary that somebody else would steal your work. You can also be the robber who robs yourself. Okay. Next slide, please. So now I'm going to talk to you about simple ways to avoid plagiarism. You know, this happens many times in lectures that people give a kind of thunder and lightning lecture and they scare everybody half to death. Oh my God, I'm not a thief, I'm not a robber. But they don't tell you how to avoid plagiarism, which is more important because as researchers, we all must be aware of the ways to avoid plagiarism. Now, the first is very simple, cite your source. As you all know, we publish some basic documentation, whether it's the Chicago style or it's MLA or it's APA. Every institute has a preferred documentation style. Right? So, your citations follow that documentation style. So when you allude to an idea or a wording that's not your own, add a citation in your own writing. A citation that identifies the full name of the source. What is the source? The date it was published. Any other? V. Shanmugan, could you please switch off your audio? Mr. Shanmugan, could you please switch off your audio?
Yes, madam. Sure.
Thank you. So any other citation element that's required by the style guide you are adhering to. So the answer here is that you are to follow the style guide that you are using for your research and accordingly add a citation. It's as simple as that. And one very simple way of doing it is right in the beginning of your research, start maintaining a file in which you add all the sources that you consult. If you start doing it at the beginning of your research, it will not become a problem. I've many times had students who had consulted a book in a library thinking that at the end of the research, they would go back and note down the citation details. But by the time they went back, the book had been issued by somebody for a very long time, or it had been stolen from the library. In one case, the relevant pages had been torn out, or in another case, the library was shut down, as the British Council Library here in Chandigarh. So don't wait. Maintain your citations right from the beginning. And number two, if you are using somebody else's words in your writing, use quotation marks around the text to denote that the words are not your own. And use a direct quote so the readers know who the quote is from. You see, one important aspect of citations is that citations act as a guide to future researchers. So in order to become a successful mentor, you need to tell your mentees that these are the books you can consult. In the long run, this works out in your favor. Next slide, please. Also, careful paraphrase, successful paraphrase is one way of avoiding plagiarism. How? If you feel that this idea you absolutely cannot do without, you need it in your research. But remember, it involves a little bit of hard work. As I say in the slide, it involves a bit of a dance because you will have to reword and format your writing in your own style. Number one. Number two, avoid using too many similar words or phrases from the source. What you need is the idea itself without changing the meaning of the idea. So you are still using somebody's idea, but you have made it fit your language. Of course, you have to include a citation to the source. I'm not saying that you can steal ideas if you are good at paraphrase. All I'm saying is that if you use paraphrase, the idea will not stand out starkly as somebody else's writing. And anyway, you are acknowledging the list of sources. Next, please. So don't just copy the ideas or words. Now remember what I told you right in the beginning. What is your unique perspective? What are you giving to the research that nobody else has done? And remember, if you're writing on the same topic for multiple assignments, don't try to recycle previous works because that would be self-plagiarism. So, this question will come up again and again. What is your unique perspective? What is your unique point? What is new that you are contributing to the subject field? And also remember that the punishment for self-plagiarism is as tough as the punishment for plagiarism. So don't take the risk. Once you learn to paraphrase and present your ideas in your own language, it will be an easy task for you to present those ideas and give the source in the reference. Next slide, please. And of course, use a plagiarism checker, an online plagiarism checking tool. Also remember that ethics in the field of humanities, languages, and social sciences may involve just ethics to do with the text, to do with the subject. But in the field of the sciences or the medical sciences, ethics involves the human subjects, which is why now every institution has an ethics review committee or ERC, which is a committee that takes care of any slip-ups and to which all research on human subjects needs to go in order to get approval. Because there are parameters for doing research on human subjects. And there's no way that a researcher can jump those parameters. So where in the languages, a simple plagiarism check is enough. In the sciences, you may need a proper ethics review committee, a committee that will take care of your human subjects. For instance, when you decided to do the study, did you take written permission from all of them? When you decided to do the study, were you aware of the implications of using human subjects? Have you thought through the research you're going to subject them to? Have you thought through the conditions under which you will do that research? Have you told them about the entire research process? And will you be sharing your results with them? And in case you publish, will you take permission from your human subjects? You see, in the area of science, ethics has different implications. In the area of ELT, English language teaching, the implications are again different. If you are planning on using classroom observation as a tool, have you taken permission from all the students and the teachers that you're going to observe their class, that maybe you're going to make a recording, or you will be publishing what you have observed? So when we say ethics and plagiarism, ethics has a much wider ambit and a much larger area. So be very careful when you are looking at research that involves something else beyond the books and materials. Now, the online plagiarism checking tool can help you in your inadvertent plagiarism. I've given you one online checker, small SEO tools, but there are more plagiarism checking devices available online. So, which also let you know which sections you have to watch out for. There's one very good online writing lab which is called OWL. It's run by, I put it in the chat box. It's run by the Purdue University. So this can be a good starting point. You can use it's a totally free application that you can use. But now so many of the remedies for plagiarism are available in the digital domain. That is where the digital turn in humanities has benefited us, and where Industry 4.0 is going to be very helpful for all of us. So you can use the digital domain for your doubts and verification. Next slide, please. I've given you a set of 5 sentences here. Since this is a workshop, Neena ji, would the participants like to do these sentences?
Yes, ma'am, I'm sure time and they would be looking forward to that kind of exercise.
Okay, let's see who can paraphrase these 5 sentences. Please put them in the chat box when you are done. So, Neena ji, do you have an award for the person who comes
Of course,
first?
ma'am, you can guide us as to what kind of incentive can you give those people who are actually participating. We can give them a commission certificate if you like.
Yeah, any kind of incentive, okay?
Okay, ma'am, definitely.
Guys, get going. Let's see who does these 5 sentences first. This is just a way of acquainting you with how to adapt language to your style. I'm not encouraging you to steal ideas. I'm just showing you how you can adapt those ideas so they fit into your language, which is why we encourage researchers to learn paraphrase. I'll give you 5 minutes for these 5 sentences, okay? Some people are running away from the group.
No, I don't think, ma'am.
Okay. There were 2 people who ran away. I thought they ran away because of the task.
I think sometimes technology plays fluent.
Okay, Shruti Chakraborty. Professor declined to entertain the student's request for a leave. Excellent, Shruti, because you completely changed the style of the sentence. Professor refused the request to excuse the student's absence.
Ma'am,
Right.
there is one participant from our YouTube channel as well, Mr. Shyam Swaroop Tanmini, who has done it. He says the professor refused the student's request for absence.
Oh, yes. The Shubhanshi Gaur has also given the same.
Then Shreya Madan also says the professor refused to accept any kind of excuses for her absence.
That completely changes the flavor of the sentence. Good. Yeah.
Ishita
What about the
Bansal,
second? Yeah, please go ahead.
Ishita Bansal says the professor refused excuse of student's absence. I wonder if you will accept it.
No, because that uses the same words. So
Then,
it doesn't, it doesn't change the flavor of the sentence.
then Sohan Khan has said the professor refused the request by the student to excuse her.
No, again the same words.
Then the professor denied the student's request for absence comes from Ishika.
Ayushi Agarwal says the request regarding a leave by the students. Yeah, we can consider this one. Yeah.
Then Mr. Rana Jaya Singh says, Mr. Rana Jaya Singh says the professor refused to accept the student's request for absence.
Again, you're using the same words. That is the problem. There's now people have turned to the next sentence. Sugandha is talking about the next one. Would you like to visit the music concert next to the Vienna coffee shop? Okay, definitely you've changed the look of the sentence. Would you like to join me at the music concert near the Vienna coffee shop? Yeah, looks better, definitely. Let me also tell you one thing. There's nothing right or wrong about paraphrase in the sentence, in the sense that no one attempt can be entirely incorrect. There may be many attempts. A paraphrase is quite like a case study. Just as a case study has many options, similarly, a paraphrase would have many ways of doing it. Shubhanshi, you can't say go and accompany together in one breath. Either you'll go or you'll accompany. Okay, I think Ninaji, we can safely go to the next slide, where I'm giving you the possible solutions, and you can see how you can arrive at sentences that change the structure. What is paraphrase? Where you change the structure of the sentence and you change the words. Now look at this one. There's a concert happening next to the Vienna coffee shop. Will you accompany me? Good idea. Do you want to come to the coffee shop that is near a music concert? I think you've kind of mixed up attention. To help the international center. Okay, this is different. Yeah. English non-native speakers can improve their English by taking classes at International Center. Omkarpreet says, to help non-native English speakers practice the language, the International Center is hosting English conversation classes. Yeah, that sounds much better. So can we move to the next slide, Neena ji? Okay, you've got another one here, another challenge here. Let's see who manages it. Foreign students are taught to speak English at International Center while they host English conversation class. And say to them not English speakers the interesting English classes. Neena ji, can we turn to the next? Next slide, please. Okay, this is another challenge for you. Now, you see, just as you noticed in the earlier passage, Radhika and Omkarpreet got to the point of the matter. In paraphrase and in research too, you've got to get to bottom of the business. What is it that the person is trying to say? So now I have a little tougher passage for you. Let's see how you manage this one. You've got to get to the facts of the passage. What is this person trying to say? And then put it in your own words. Okay? I'll give you 2 or 3 minutes, don't worry. And I've given you a hint earlier. One way of doing it is to change the sequence. For instance, with this one, you could begin with the 10,000 Women Initiative was initiated with the goal of educating business women in order to become entrepreneur. Now, you can't do anything about the word entrepreneur because do you think you can find a synonym for entrepreneur? So the words that you can't find synonyms for, you can preserve as they are and go on with them. See, the moot point here is not your talent for finding words. The moot point here is that you are able to present ideas in your own style and you have the confidence to acknowledge those ideas. Where did I get them from? That is what matters. Is anyone ready with the paraphrase of this one? I gave you a hint. Come on. Due to an apparent lack of access to education and appropriate finances, okay, women entrepreneurs face challenges that boundary their success. The 10,000 Women Initiative addresses exactly that. They help understand critical aspects of business and enable women overcome related challenges. Quite good. Could we go on to the next slide, please? These are the possible solutions that present themselves. And you see how they've been summarized. Businesswoman is not the exact element of an entrepreneur, you know. That is the trouble, Subhanda. Because you've got to look for something that exactly mirrors what the author is saying. Now, look at this one. Fortunate Sons tells the story of Chinese exchange students who came to the US in the 1870s to learn how to help their home nation. Compare it to the original passage. Can we go back to paraphrase 3, please? Can we go back to paraphrase 3? Now look at this one. Illiteracy is a problem in many of the world's poorest countries, even in wealthy nations like the US. Many children struggle with reading and writing. But in 19 cities across the country, the volunteers of Experience Corps are helping youngsters learn to read. The volunteers, all over 50, work with students in low-income areas. Now let's go back. The one that has the solution. Next one. Yeah, this one from 19 US cities improve their literacy skills. So questions are super concise, but I wanted to give you a bit of a jolt that Monica Chaudhary is asking the question, is it necessary for good paraphrasing to be concise? No, because see, paraphrasing is mostly done for a purpose. So you have to be sure of your purpose. If your purpose is just to convey some facts, now the first and second examples are fine for you. But if your purpose is to convey a concept or an idea, then it cannot be concise. So look at Gurshik's paraphrase. In a patriarchal and economically challenged setup, women are at a disadvantage in their entrepreneurial ventures due to lack of educational opportunity. Therefore, to overcome the challenge, a 10,000 women initiative has been set up to, etc. So this is one way of doing it. And another interesting thing about paraphrases that the more drafts you have, the better. Do lots of drafts so that the ideas don't look patchy and you can own the ideas for yourself. Now let's go on to the next slide. How do you avoid plagiarism? Number one, attribute references. Don't be shy of acknowledging your references. Don't be shy of naming the books or websites or journals you've consulted. Describe all sources of information. Give acknowledgement. Acknowledge. Provide footnotes, notes or endnotes, whatever works for you. This is also one way of avoiding plagiarism. You feel that you've read something and your work has an echo. You use an endnote. We no longer use footnotes, of course. They are used in some citations. So give an endnote that this idea is related to a similar article I had read. Remember, when you give a long list of sources, you are also admitting the fact that you are well read. It goes for you rather than against you, that you are well read. Some of the best research papers I've read have had 50 to 100 endnotes. So it's not a matter of shame to have a long bibliography or to have a long list of references. Use quotation marks wherever required. So for God's sake, wherever you are using something that was written by somebody else, give the quote marks. And the other thing is, one device that we all forget to use is the ellipses, the three dots that you see when a bit of the text has been left out. So use the ellipses as and when required. And for extensive quotations, take permission from the publisher or copyright holder of original work. If you feel that you are quoting very long, you are quoting very long quotes, take permission from the publisher. Paraphrase says that if I use a lot of references, won't it reduce the overall originality? Won't it be more like combining ideas from here and there? Paraphrase, it is a sign of your being well read. But that is why we focus so much on the research question, because your originality is revealed by your research question, by the research methodology. Your originality is not hampered by the list of references. The list of references simply means that you are well read. You've read everything that is available. And also remember that widely known scientific and historical facts, they are common knowledge. They don't run. So avoid self-plagiarism by taking permission. If you've published an article earlier, make sure you take permission from the publisher of the previous article that yes, I'm going to use this. I know this question often comes in the minds of researchers that if I acknowledge all the sources I used, I will not be original. But then you've got to make a choice. Do you want to be known as a thief? Number one. And number two, remember that research builds up on work previously done. So if you have managed to find something, a research question that was not previously tackled in all these sources, that goes to your credit. It doesn't go against you. Next slide, please. Okay, I'm glad that Omkarpreet is slightly convinced. Fine. So this is a general guide to understanding written plagiarism. I took it from the owl, as I told you. You can see the owl in the corner, which is why I am acknowledging that I've taken it from there. So you need to ask yourself a question. Are my own words being used? If it's a yes, is it my idea? Yes. If it's a no, that means you are paraphrasing. that my own words are not being used, then if it's a quote, you use quotation marks, you're not plagiarizing. If it's a quote and you're not using quotation marks, you are plagiarizing. So go and quote it. Whether you need quotation marks or not is your call. Okay, I'll stop here. If you have any questions, you can type them in the chat box, or you can unmute yourself and ask. Please go ahead. Thank you very much for your patience and listening to me all this while. Ninaji, I think we can stop presenting.
Okay, ma'am.
Any questions? Carry on.
Ma'am, there is a
You
question
feel shy.
about a YouTube viewer, Saloni Ratu. She says, while writing my dissertation, I ended up citing dialogue from the novel itself. Even if properly cited, the software says it is plagiarized. How can we deal with such a situation?
No, you need to, there may be a possibility that you haven't indented it properly. You see, that is why the convention of citation is very, very clear in every style sheet. If you're not using proper indentation, or if your quote marks are misplaced, or if the quote is a long one and you are not following the convention of the style sheet. Because you know, who is looking at your thesis or research work? It is a tool of artificial intelligence. It's not a human agency. And that tool has all the citation styles of the world. So it's important that you quote the citation style you are using and follow the convention.
Okay, ma'am, I'm sure you must have got your answer right.
Monica Chaudhary, for you also it's the same answer. For block quotes, you have to follow the style sheet. You know, sometimes we feel that we are mature researchers. We don't need to look at the style sheet of, but that is an error. Please look at the style sheet carefully and follow all the conventions.
Excuse me, ma'am.
Yeah.
Ma'am, I'm Dr. Angela Upadhyay from Delhi
Yes.
University.
Go ahead.
So I was found your lecture immensely enlightening. Thank you so much. But you were talking about self-plagiarism.
Yeah.
My PhD is on oral tradition. So what happens is I have been sending my articles. So I discuss, as you said, the topic sentence and research question. So I may be discussing different aspects of that oral tradition in different papers. But because this is something which is not universally known, this is a lesser known entity.
Yeah.
So I feel that I should obliged to give at least a short summary of what the narrative is like. Otherwise, people will not be able to appreciate.
Yeah.
So that summary, obviously, in all the papers, it would be the same. How can I change? Maybe I can change a few sentences, but the basic outline, because I'm just trying to give, the story in short. So that cannot be called plagiarism, self-plagiarism, if you say.
There's a very simple way of doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Here you paraphrase your abstract for every paper, so that the structures change and the words change. Number one. Or number two, you can put a small end note there, which says that this paper, the author has conducted research in such and such area, and this paper may carry some insights from that.
Okay.
You see, the whole game, Dr. Upadhyay, the whole game is the game of acknowledging.
Yeah, that's it. No, I always said this is my area of interest. My PhD doctoral work is on this. So I think that is there, but this is my concern because I feel that if I do not enlighten my readers about the basic story, they would not be able to appreciate the nuances that I'm talking about.
Yes. You're right there. So just think to yourself that for somebody who's new to your paper,
yes,
it may appear self-plagiarized. So what can you do?
But if I don't put the summary, then they will think it's not Mahabharata or Ramayana, which everybody know. People from my region would know, but you may not know anything about the narrative that I am talking about. I want all scholars to appreciate the points that I am elaborating on.
So
anyway, yes, I got your point.
The best way is to use lots of endnotes.
Yes, okay.
Help you know end. And I'm pretty surprised that people don't use enough endnotes these days. Endnotes are actually a badge of scholarship. Because they show the amount of what you have put into the process.
Okay, madam. Thank you so much.
Welcome. All the best.
Thank you.
Ma'am, there is a question from one of our YouTube viewers, Abha Kaushik. She wants to know, how does one include one's own previous work in references or works cited?
You just follow the citation methodology, put in your name, and after that you can give the list of works. You follow the same citation methodology you follow for all authors. You are any other author for yourself. Okay?
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Any other questions, please? Okay, Neena ji, no worries, which is why I've put in my email address in the chat box.
Yes.
And I have no objection if people want to use the PPT to help them. You're welcome to send it forward.
Okay, ma'am. And we can always share it with our participants. Since
Please go ahead. Yeah, please go ahead.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for a beautiful session. And in fact, there was a quote, since we have talked too much about ethics and plagiarism, so it's always better to quote instead of saying it as if I have coined it. I have not. There are 3 things to aim at in public speaking. Alexander Greg said, there are 3 things to aim at in public speaking. First, to get into your subject, then to get your subject into yourself, and lastly, to get your subject into the heart of the audience. For actually making us very, very aware about the subtle points, because many times we might end up committing the theft without acknowledging, because we might think that it is something which is also my in the same words. So very unknowingly, sometimes people do end up getting into the conflict, and therefore your tips, your observations, your insights definitely will stand good stead all of us in times to come. This is a very heterogeneous group, as I mentioned earlier also. There are senior academicians who must definitely have benefited mutually. It is in fact always a learning curve for all of us. And for new researchers, for those who are novice into this, I'm sure your lecture will definitely be very, very illuminating in all the research endeavors. And thanks a lot for giving us the hands-on training also, and living up to what is the usual mandate of all the RUSA programs, that it has to be a workshop. And we have done the exercises, and I must thank you for giving us this mental vocabulary, and we had to think of all our vocabulary, in order to put the words in the places. And there is another thing which I would like to share with you, and this is said by Ken Hammer. He is designing a presentation without an audience in mind is like writing a love letter and addressing it to to whom it may concern. So with that, ma'am, I again thank you for your very, very illuminating lecture, very enlightening session. And I would now request my very dear colleague, Dr. Tyagi, to propose the form of thanks. Komil?
Thank you, Neena ma'am. And as Deepti ma'am has rightly put it, the game is all about acknowledging. So it's time we make our acknowledgements. Thank you, Ms. Neena Sharma, the coordinator of RUSA for the institution, for this opportunity come awareness program on ethics and plagiarism to reflect on the issues which affect the process of research worldwide. We are deeply indebted to our worthy resource person and mentor for many of us here, Professor Deepti Gupta, Chairperson, Department of English and Culture Studies, Punjab University, and Honorary Coordinator for the Center for Skill Development and Entrepreneurship, Punjab University, for giving us insights and deliberations into the world of research, which has found itself a wide expanse in this new millennium. Madam, we are grateful to you for sharing the principles and ethics involved in the process of research and deliberating on the kinds of plagiarism we come across and methods to circumvent the same. We hope this lecture will infuse a new spirit of dedication in the present and upcoming researchers of the world. We thank our worthy principal, Dr. Nisha Bhargav, for her able guidance that steers us through everything. Her unflinching leadership infuses teamwork in the institution. We are also grateful to our institutional coordinator of RUSA, Ms. Neena Sharma, for her enthusiastic and persistent support for the smooth execution of RUSA mission in the institution. We also take this opportunity to thank the entire team of RUSA, our nodal and program officers, our technical support team, and most importantly, our August gathering of more than 1,700 participants from across the nation and 11 different countries abroad, who have, as we can see it, made the event a success with the supporting presence. Thank you all for those perceptive questions, and we are sure that this is going to prove very beneficiary to the process of research in every way. This all shall help us rise from strength to strength. Mayor Chand Mahajan, DAV College for Women, shall hope and pray for your well-being and wishes you a very great academic journey ahead. Jai Hind.
Thank you, Komil.
Thank you so much, Komil. And I must place record my once again my thanks to all our enthusiastic participants who have made this lecture very, very much a cerebral feast, as I said at the very beginning. And one more thing, on 22nd January, we are going to have a session by Professor R.C. Sharma from Ambedkar University on open educational resources. So all the participants are invited to register themselves for this event also, because while doing research, I'm sure open educational resources are definitely going to be the catalyst. So thank you, Deepti ma'am. Thank you so much for being such a great support. And as always, you have mesmerized all our participants. Thank you so much. Thanks to all the participants. Have a great life ahead. Have a great journey ahead. Thank you, Deepti ma'am.
Thanks, Neena ji. Thank you.
Thank you,
Now
ma'am.
we can start leaving the meeting. Thank you so much.